Welcome back, everybody, to the Section 305 podcast. We're doing things very differently this time around. Obviously, Raul Pagan is not with us, but we're still going to put on a great show for you guys. And we have our scouter, our man with the massive brain in football, Nick Dupont. Yep, that's right. We know John Gruden is the guy that does these things, quarterback class, but nah, we're in Nick's scouting room, people. My name's Anthony Aguirre. Nick, how we doing?
I'm doing good, man. I've waited a long time for this moment. I've been scouting players for since high school. I've been obsessed with football my entire life. I've always wanted to play, never got the chance because I saw the movie Concussion. I was like, I don't want that. So I decided to stick to the books and the numbers and watching games rather than just being part of that physicality and that action as much as I would love to be a part of it.
Nick, the draft is next week. Obviously, an amazing moment for a bunch of these players, but this class is not highly regarded in many areas, especially at quarterback. You got a few talents here and there that can make a surprise jump, but for the most part, there's no one outside of Fernando Mendoza that really speaks in terms of a franchise quarterback. So, just like as a bit of a layup, just what do you make of this draft class in terms of the quarterbacks?
Well, in terms of quarterbacks, I would say I would definitely have to agree with you. It is a very weak class, considering that we have been spoiled in the past 5, 6 years, maybe even longer now, of great quarterbacks just coming in left and right and having these great classes. Where we saw Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson get drafted in the same year, or even we witnessed the Patrick Mahomes draft in which the Bears took Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes. Like we've seen generational prospect after generational prospect just go and go and go. And I don't want to say we're going to see the same thing here, but it's an interesting class, I will say the least. You got guys like Fernando, who's obviously going to be the clear number one pick. You got guys like Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik, I think is pretty interesting player. Carson Beck, just some names to throw out there. Like, there's definitely some talent. I just don't know if they're going to be NFL worthy, especially day one, including Mendoza.
Yeah, Mendoza, I think it's pretty much clear we're going to start with Mendoza. He is the consensus number one pick in this year's draft to the Las Vegas Raiders, who recently signed Kirk Cousins to a pretty questionable deal. We'll see how that affects Mendoza as he develops in the next level. But of course, national championship made a massive jump with Indiana. Before that, he was not much with Cal, or even as a high school recruit, he was unranked. Really, there was nothing talking about Mendoza really as a recruit. So, just like Nick, like how would if you're an NFL scout, NFL front office member, and you see Mendoza, what makes him separate compared to the rest of the position minus the national championship?
Well, I think it's the fact that he knows how to win. And not only that, he's a very accurate quarterback who's very strong in the pocket and can make the plays when you need him to. The moment that really stood out for Fernando de Mendoza for me was when he played Penn State. Now, I know Penn State didn't have that exactly the greatest season this year, but Penn State is still a very tough team to play. And this year, if I'm not mistaken, Penn State was on a huge win streak, just years after year after year after beating Indiana. So Indiana hadn't beat Penn State in a really long time. And Mendoza came out and showed his Heisman moments and led that team to a win, especially with a beautiful alley-oop pass. I think it was to Elijah Sarah, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken on the name, but Elijah Sarah, he made some huge plays at the end of that game. Just overall, man, Mendoza, listen, he's a great quarterback, but he does struggle sometimes in the short game. Like you'll see him make some of these crazy deep throws. You'll see him make great intermediate passes to short passes, but he'll sometimes miss those routine passes that you would expect him to make. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can miss on this guy. Like I said before, he knows how to win. He knows how to use his legs. He's a great arm. He has a great arm. Maybe not like an NFL quality arm, but he definitely has a great arm to get past the first few years of his career while he develops. So that's where I stand with Fernando Mendoza because you know that like this guy's a talent. I've scouted a lot of players in my life, and he is a talent. I just don't know if he's one of the premier talents that we're going to be seeing in the soon in the four seat in the fourth. I'm so sorry. I'm a little nervous. My first day doing the scouting rooms. I'm a little nervous, but it's gonna be it's definitely gonna be a challenge, especially with him most likely going to the Rangers. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, Mendoza obviously broke a lot of hearts for his hometown here in Miami.
Oh,
But Well, you mentioned this, but you mentioned this before. As a Heisman Trophy winner, he made a Heisman Trophy play in the national championship to get that game-winning touchdown, and so that obviously must have been a boost for him in his draft stock. But I do question because this is obviously his best year in college. The rest of the years were not as great. So and also you look at how Indiana constructed their roster. A lot of veterans in there that maybe should have gone to the NFL maybe a little bit sooner. But of course, the whole redshirt eligibility thing, that's still a hot topic in today's college sports world. So you just wonder, can he elevate a franchise as the number one pick, or is he simply just a system quarterback? And because he's going to the Raiders, we don't have to do a whole where he's going to go. He's going to the Raiders.
Right? Yeah, he is going to the Raiders.
So it's just okay. Can he elevate that franchise who's been struggling for years to find a cornerstone quarterback? You have a few good young pieces in there. You did pretty decent in free agency. If anything, you're one of the winners so far. And so you just wonder, okay, can he elevate this franchise, or is he simply a guy that you have to surround with elite talent to succeed? Because even though there was no one that stood out in Indiana as in terms of talent wise, but still they had a lot of veterans on there. So I would like. There's obviously a lot to like. He has some toughness off there. Obviously, he's been an underdog all of his career. This is the first time he's actually ahead of the pack in terms of just you know draft status. So I I would just only ask myself, can he change my franchise if I'm running an NFL organization really?
I would answer that with yeah. I definitely think he can impact the franchise and honestly lead a direction, a right direction with the right franchise. I don't want to say the Raiders are going to be the right franchise. I mean, he's going to be ending up there, but it definitely is a great piece to have moving forward for the Raiders because the Raiders have struggled in this department for years now. Yes, they had Derek Carr, they had Carson Palmer, but even then, it's never been enough, you know. But getting a guy
Yeah.
like Mendoza, even though he's not an elite Southern athlete, he definitely has great field vision. He's amazing ball placement. His size alone is what NFL scouts love about him, including myself. Like it's very rare to get a guy who's 6'5" and who has a little bit of movement. You know what I mean? And he definitely has what it takes to win. And like we were talking about with that play against Miami, where he ran into the end zone and just dove head first into the crowd. Like that showed teams like, man, this guy knows what it has to win, and he has what it takes. Like he's not just poised in the pocket and has a great arm, but he can make big plays when you need him to on the run. And yeah, he may not be the fastest and he may not be the greatest athlete out there, but isn't that the most important thing though? That X factor in which you can win big games and find ways to win. You know what I mean? Like just like and like turning nothing into something. Like that's what he has. He has that factor about him, his game that I do enjoy watching.
Yeah, for Mendoza, I think it's critical for him to find success. The Raiders need to desperately revamp that offensive line. They allowed the most sacks this past NFL regular season. So obviously, it's hard for an offense to generate points when your quarterback is getting sacked every other play.
No.
So I think that's going to play a role in how his rookie year goes. But it's going to be very interesting. Do we see Nick maybe like a Jaden Daniels arc for him, where he goes to a historically bad organization and can turn things around in the span of maybe 3 years?
Well, I don't want to say a Jaden Daniels arc because I mean he definitely can do something within the next 3 years with this organization. I do want to say that. I just don't want to call it a Jaden Daniels arc because Jaden Daniels is currently on the arc of RG3, in which RG3 was drafted by the Washington Redskins, tore his ACL, never the same again. The guy was supposed to change their franchise,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we've already seen it with Jaden Daniels, where he's been a little injury prone. You know, like he's had his moments where he's been injured and he can't stay healthy. So I don't really see that from Mendoza. Mendoza's really tough. He knows how to stay calm in the pocket. He could take big shots and he could still get up like nothing. Like we saw him bleeding for Christ's sake in the national championship, and he got up like nothing and balled out. So I really like the fit for Mendoza going to the Raiders. I do think he might need to sit out. I think the first 5 weeks of the season, and having a quarterback like Kirk Cousins is going to be perfect for him, so he can develop. It's funny that they have Kirk Cousins because the more research I was doing on him, I actually kind of saw Kirk Cousins like moments from Mendoza where he would make big plays left and right, like when Kirk Cousins goes off for his 500-yard games, his 400-yard games. Like I saw visions of that, and with a little bit of Jared Goff, a little bit little bit more mobile than Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins, definitely. But I see visions like that, and when you get a guy like that and you see that vision and he's right there for you, like I think that's all you can do. Just make sure he's safe, make sure he's healthy, make sure he's reliable, and make sure he has the system down pat. And that's why I'm suggesting to the Raiders that they should sit him for the first 5 games because there's really no expectations for this upcoming season. Yeah, you boosted up your defense, you boosted up your O line, but I still don't see this team competing right away in the
Mhm.
AFC West.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see what the rest of the pack does in that division because the Chiefs, depending on how this draft goes, could be the difference maker in how competitive they can be back in the Super Bowl if Patrick Mahomes comes back in the middle of the year at best. The Chargers are still the Chargers. They're always going to be great in the regular season, and then we'll see what happens down the stretch. So there's going to be a lot of questions in that division. So that alone might put the Raiders away. But like you said, there's not heavy expectations. We all know it's going to take time before everything gels together. The good thing is you have a good young tight end, you have a good young running back, you got a good young quarterback. Then you have potentially your core pieces, and then you build out the rest of the roster. So we'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah, they have the game plan set in stone. They just
Mhm.
need to execute on it. My question to you about Mendoza is: do you think he's going to be able to keep his consistent accuracy in the NFL with the lack of receiver depth that the Raiders have? Because I've taken a look at the receiver depth in the Raiders, and yeah, they have some of the guys from last year, young pieces, but I don't think it's enough because Mendoza was throwing 72% last year in Indiana, and overall he's throwing 68% completion pass percentage for his career, which is fantastic to see from a quarterback that he can be accurate when you need him to. Like, mind you, he came into the ACC with California, struggled for his first season, balled out the next year with 3,000 yards. Interception ratio to touchdowns needed a little bit of work, and he got it
Mhm.
fixed. So, do you think he's going to be able to elevate that team? I'm asking you the same question, basically.
I mean, for that wide receiver core, I think that there's going to be another obstacle to get over because here's the thing: even Mendoza kind of told about this at the NFL Combine that he didn't participate in the NFL Combine. He said
Mm.
he did the pro day because he wants to make his guys look good. So the fact that he is not with his guys no more, you got to wonder, can he have that same chemistry with older guys, people that have NFL experience? Because listen, Fernando's a nice guy. He's probably the most well mannered person in this draft class, and that's why it's funny that him and Kirk shared the quarterback room because they share similar personalities. But I would say no for the first year because you know that QB wide receiver connection is so important, especially for talent. And if that wide receiver core can't elevate itself, then I doubt Mendoza can elevate that on his own. So I would say no for the first year, and then we'll see what happens in the next free agency.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think if the Raiders can make a big move for receiver, then he can really succeed. But I still think he might shine, especially if they stick to the short and
Yeah.
intermediate game this upcoming season. He definitely can't succeed. They're just going to have to rely on him making big plays with his feet, and I don't know if that's going to be the greatest for them moving forward,
Mhm.
to be
I would
honest.
say
Because
I would say for him in terms of in-game evaluation, I wouldn't go by the final score. Of course, I would go by production, but also how do the Raiders look in these games? Are they competitive? Are they making it difficult? Are they
of
potentially like
course,
pulling off upsets? Because again, we're not expecting the Raiders to do much this upcoming year, especially in terms of playoffs. So I think that's the best way to evaluate Mendoza is he keeping the Raiders in the game? Is he pulling off with those same plays he made in college? I think those are good ways to evaluate how he does as a future quarterback moving forward.
no, I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, there's really no other way you can evaluate it. If the guy can't win you big games or even just the small games and just even if games are tight and he has to come in and just like clutch up and and get a victory and you see that he doesn't have that little X factor in the NFL, then that's already a red flag as it is because you have the size, you have the talent, you have the abilities to do what you can as an NFL quarterback. You may be very average your first few years, but you definitely have what it takes to get to that level. But if you can't get if you can't get those wins, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how much production you have.
I think that would be the best case scenario for the Raiders is to be mediocre because they've been in the basement for so many years now and they've gone through so many names. I think that'll be their best bet, honestly.
No,
All
I
right.
agree.
Yeah, so all right, Nick. So this is arguably again this class is not that great for quarterbacks, but this is arguably the guy behind Mendoza, and according to ESPN, maybe even a close second is Ty Simpson from Alabama. I know you have your concerns with him, so I'm interested to hear what they are. He did, lead Alabama to the playoffs. Of course, it was short lived, and he's a dual threat quarterback. He can definitely extend plays with his legs. But Nick, what maybe are your doubts on Ty Simpson?
Honestly, it's just the accuracy. It's the accuracy for me. I mean, listen, the guy has an NFL release. All right, he's quick. He can be mobile. He's a good processor, and he can throw on the move. And he also has a low turnover profile. But at the end of the day, man, regardless of having a low turnover profile, if you can't be complete, if you're not completing passes, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. You have to be able to complete these passes. He has a career percentage of like 63%, if I'm not mistaken. This past season, he had a 64%, which was his career high. The years before that, he was averaging 50 to 56, which is not good at all for a quarterback. That means half of your passes are getting completed, and you're playing for Alabama out of all places with all the talent in the world. I mean, to be fair, this was honestly like his first real season as a starter,
Yeah.
so you got to give him credit for that, especially for throwing for 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Not the greatest runner, but it's the fact that we're looking at a situation like Anthony Richardson, where you get a guy who's
Ooh.
only played like 13 games, and maybe not that is injury prone, but you have a very small like percent. You ever have a very small percentage of like how many games he's actually started and how much he succeeded in his career. Like
Mhm.
mind you, he threw his first collegiate touchdown this past season. Like
Yeah.
that's and he played 4 years. So it's a rough. It's rough to kind of like base that off of. Like you can't go off his junior year, his sophomore year, his freshman. No, everything is based off of that one freshman year. He's a little quick. He ran a 4.8. He does have a little bit limited starting sample though when it comes to like how many games he's played. His frame is pretty average. He's like 6'2", 200 pounds, which is not the greatest for a quarterback. You need to be a little bit more bulky or just taller in that case. Um, like
We'll get to
his
size later. We'll get to the size later on.
Yeah, the size is whatever, but his arm, like it runs out of juice fast, man. Like he'll have like you'll see these games where he'll somehow have like a really deep arm at the beginning of the game. He'll come in guns blazing, and then throughout the game he loses that juice, and you can see there's a little more loft of the ball than you would like. He just kind of floats it into coverage, and it doesn't really sit right with me. I feel like he's one of those guys like Mendoza who also just kind of like misses the routine passes that you wouldn't expect him to miss. In regards to the run game, though, he's not. He's definitely an athlete. I'm not discrediting that he's an athlete. I just don't think he's a premier runner, especially for a quarterback in the NFL. I do think there are other quarterbacks out there, like Cade Klubnik, for example. I think he's a better runner than Ty Simpson right now, but I think Simpson should be going in the second, maybe third round. Honestly,
Mhm.
man. Like I know a lot of teams are quarterback hungry, where they're really needy for someone right now. So I definitely see him going at the end of the first because of that reason. But realistically, man, like this is a guy that should be falling towards the end of the second, like beginning of the third at least, like around the Carson Beck area, because
Mhm.
I don't think he has what it takes to win it all. Like I don't think he has that edge that other quarterbacks do. Because like we talk about guys that got drafted late at the end of the first or beginning of the second, like Jalen Hurts, for example, who a lot of people had doubts on him, where they kind of discredited the fact that he can't really throw the ball, but he could run, and the Eagles were able to use that to their system and use it to their advantage. I wouldn't also call him a system quarterback either. I do think that he can succeed wherever he goes. I just don't know the level of his succession moving forward. Um, Ty Simpson reminds me a lot about Bo Nix, especially the way he runs the ball. He's an athlete. That's what I mentioned before. He is an athlete. He can move on the run. He can throw the ball on the run just like Bo Nix. I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think he has that juice that Bo Nix does, where he's gonna be like that next level player or like that next big guy. I think he fits more of the role of like Spencer Rattler, where he's gonna be that backup for just years and years and years to come. And it's not a bad thing to be a really great backup quarterback in the league. So I think that's
Yeah.
honestly his ceiling for me.
So the most he threw for was 382 yards in a single game. That was against Wisconsin.
Yeah, that was back earlier in the year.
Their third game of the regular season. 24 out of 29 passes completed. So yeah, so that's the most that he's thrown for, and some haven't projected going to the Jets because they are quarterback hungry, like you mentioned. But even then, some NFL organizations are going to look at this class and be like, we got to wait another year because supposedly next year's class is more quarterback heavy with talent and maybe franchise pieces. So we'll see how that goes. Um,
Well, my question to you about Ty Simpson really quickly is where
yeah.
where would you see his best fit being? Because I mentioned that he's not a system quarterback. I personally don't see him as a system quarterback, but I
Mhm.
do think depending on the organization that he goes to, he can be sculpted and molded into something. I don't know if he'll be a Premier League quarterback, but he definitely can be one of those B tier, C tier quarterbacks that can linger around as a starter for the league. So, where do you think would be his best option if he was to land anywhere?
I would give him Arizona. I think because of just how they're fully resetting. Obviously, they gave away Kyler Murray, so they're in a full reset right now. I think if you get a guy like him, I think he's a decent guy to start with and evaluate with in terms of, okay, how does our future look like moving forward?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, because Arizona's in a really good spot right now. They own the number 3 pick and they have the second pick in the second round. So if they can wait off until the second round, and if they're really quarterback savvy at that point and they really want to take someone, he's there. He will. He most likely will be there because at the end of the day, I don't like the other teams that can jump the Cardinals at this point can be Cleveland. I don't really. I say Cleveland with hesitancy because they really believe in Shador Sanders. I personally don't see it, but maybe he does turn
Yeah,
into
me
something.
neither.
Um, another team that could look into getting him would be like, oh my lord, I'm blanking right now. Sorry, maybe like the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs could be an interesting destination for him. Like maybe not, maybe in the
Hmm.
back of the second, especially with Patrick Mahomes being out. You don't know how long he's going to be out for. If it could be all season, he might come way halfway through the season. Maybe you can get this young guy who's you can mold into something, be your starter for a little bit, see if you can get anything out of him, and then when Mahomes comes back, maybe you can look to trade him. If you do want a quarterback, if you do want to talk about a team that is maybe just a quarterback away, I thought the Steelers would be an interesting destination for him as well. They're already ready. They're ready to go. They just need. I feel like they just need their quarterback. They have the receiving room. They could get a couple more pieces for the running back room. I will agree, and the offensive line room. But I think Ty Simpson would be a good fit for either one of those teams.
I would not say Pittsburgh just because we haven't seen like a elite, not because Aaron Judge he back that's the back end of his career. So I would say like not Aaron Judge, my bad. Oh my gosh, Aaron Rodgers.
Mike,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh.
I
We're
got
we're
confused for a second.
we're
I was
on
like,
this
is there a
tonight.
new coach out here? It's okay. It's our first episode doing the scouting series, so it's
Yeah,
it's gonna
yeah,
take some time.
Aaron Judge switched sports. He switched sports just right now. Breaking news. But I would not say Pittsburgh just because we haven't seen like a very highly talented quarterback out of there in a minute. Obviously, they're a more defensive oriented organization, but since firing Mike Tomlin, obviously there's going to be a lot of changes over there. I would like more Kansas City Chiefs just because they're obviously a win now organization. They have the right culture, even though it's primarily older guys. They still have a bunch of veterans that Ty can learn from and develop under. So I would like that a lot better actually, compared to Pittsburgh.
It's a fun destination for him. It's a fun destination. He has weapons. He has a good offensive line. Like well, maybe not a good offensive line. He has a decent offensive line.
Yeah.
It would be an interesting spot for him to go to. Especially if he could go at the end of the second round, like I'm trying to project, like I project.
Hmm. All right. So we have Ty like back here at the second. Now, this next quarterback for us, Nick, is one that we're very familiar with. Obviously, he just played his last season of college in Miami, took him to a national championship. A bit of an up and down season for him, because we saw three different versions of him. Carson Beck, obviously, he played in Miami coming off a UCL surgery, which occurred in the SEC championship game with Georgia against Texas. And when I say we saw three different versions of him, Nick, I mean like we saw three different versions. We saw when the Hurricanes went 5-0, he still wasn't healthy, but the objective was make good passes, limit turnovers, run the ball more. You'll have time to operate because the offensive line was just elite.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, but so that happened. You start 5-0, and then ACC play it really kicks in. You go against Louisville, Stanford, and then SMU in 3 weeks. And in that span, you went 1-2. Turnovers were a massive issue against Louisville and SMU most more specifically. But then you go in the final four games, you complete 89 of 100 and I believe 112 passes for 1,200 yards, something like that, scoring 11 touchdowns, one turnover, and you make the college football playoffs. Your arm is fully healthy now. you're still balling out to a great degree in the playoffs. Obviously, Texas A&M was a difficult game to win by itself. The win was insane. I talked to people who went to the game and how of an insane environment it was, regardless of just all circumstances. And the Hurricanes still won that game. Obviously, Ohio State was a back and forth game to a certain degree, more so that second half. But Carson Beck still had some good moments. And then against Ole Miss, a real back and forth game in that fourth quarter where he was the hero with that game winning touchdown. But then you go to the national championship, he struggled. And then the interception to close out the game. Obviously, that hurt us a lot just to watch because, that team was just so great. You thought it'd be the story of a century, but just fell short a little bit. But either way, Carson Beck still had a pretty decent year for a guy who just came back from a UCL surgery. Where do you rank him in this class? Because I feel like for Beck, it's going to be up and down in terms of where he goes, just because again, he's shown different versions of himself dating back to Georgia.
Well, I want to put Beck as the number 3 quarterback in this class, and that's to me it's really neck and neck with Ty Simpson. And the only reason why I say it's neck and neck with Ty Simpson is because we've seen a lot more of Carson Beck than we have a lot more of Ty Simpson. Like Carson Beck's best year was back in 2023 with the Georgia Bulldogs. Threw 72% completion percentage, almost 4,000 yards passing, 24 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Like he was phenomenal that year. Yes, he may not have won the college championship like he wanted to, and like he did as a backup, and he wanted to win it for his team because that was his team. But unfortunately, things just didn't fold in the right direction for him. He couldn't just things unfolded badly for him. He couldn't make the big plays, and his teammates couldn't make big plays either, so they couldn't succeed into that next level that they really wanted to be at. But I loved Carson Beck. As soon as Miami decided to go pick him up, especially after the down year he had at UGA, I was super excited to get him because I knew something was up. I knew that we were going to get a systematic guy who's going to be accurate, who's going to throw the ball down the field when we needed to, and he's going to get us touchdowns. And mind you, that's what he did. He had his best year in touchdowns in his entire career with 30 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, which is a pretty good ratio, which is almost the same ratio as last year, where majority of his interceptions the year before at UGA came from just drop passes. This year in Miami, though, he really cleaned it up. I thought he did a very good job. I know a lot of people were very up and down with him as a whole, especially with the way he manages the game. I do agree with that. I don't think that he is a self-creator in which he can dictate the plays by himself, and just like what we saw at Cam Ward, where he can audible every 2 seconds, dictate the defense. He is smart and he has the IQ to make plays when he needs to make the plays, but he's also not the greatest athlete, so he can't contribute like what you would need him to. Yes, we saw him against Ole Miss run into the end zone and win the game for Miami to take us to the national championship, but that's pretty much it we saw in regards to his athleticism. We saw one receiving touchdown pass that he had earlier in the season. That was his only career receiving touchdown pass. Super excited for him to have that. But yeah. I definitely think this guy could be a nice quarterback in this league, though. I'm not trying to discredit him, though. He does have average movement skills. His ceiling is tied to structure and support. In my own words, stating that would basically be his lower body and his upper body, they just sometimes do their own things and they don't really correlate with each other. They just kind of get lost in the moment, and he just kind of struggles under pressure. I don't want to say it's all the time under pressure, though, because we have seen him make big plays under pressure, but it seems to be most of the time when these incidents do happen with interceptions and turnovers, it's when he is under pressure because he just cannot dictate what's going on. But he is a very calm pocket operator, though. He's a rhythm passer. He has great anticipation. He has great command on the field, and he has timing accuracy, which is very important for a quarterback. He knows exactly when to loft the balls into receivers' his hands at the perfect time. He knows just when to run a drag route and just in the right spot to throw it to. That's why he averages almost a 70% completion percentage for his entire career. But I really want to touch on that game that you talked about. Actually, you didn't talk about this. Sorry. See, guys. Now that this is our first episode, I gotta get the first episode jitters out so I can I can really start feeling.
Dude, I called Aaron Judge a freaking Steeler. So yeah, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Well, his best game, I don't know if you know this, Anthony, but Carson Beck's best game throwing the ball was 459 passing yards. That's incredible. He was at UGA and he beat Mississippi State. That was a phenomenal game for him. Overall, he's a very classic systematic quarterback. He's very systematic. I don't think he can make audibles on his own, like back to back times. It's just very okay, this is what we're running. This is it. We're gonna get the plays. We're gonna get the downs. We're gonna win this way or the highway. He definitely has starter traits if the franchise that he goes to is the right place for him.
Yeah.
but it's not attracting when you ask him to do everything by himself out there. Like he can't be out there just controlling the field by himself, and that's what scares a lot of these scouts, including myself. But that yes, he knows how to win games. We've seen him before do it time and time again, make big plays, have great stats, great yards, great touchdowns, but he can't create everything on his own, and that's what scares me. He's a very pocket relied quarterback. He reminds you of Jared Goff. I think that's a good ceiling for him, where he kind of reminds you of Jared Goff. Where at the beginning of his career, kind of up and down, could make big pass plays, very great IQ, very strong in the pocket, very confident. And then over time, we see him now with the Lions, and he's balling out. He's doing great. I definitely think his low would be his floor would be Mac Jones. Still a pretty decent quarterback, good backup quarterback in this league. Nothing insane. Definitely just another system quarterback at the end of the day.
I agree with you on the systematic part. I was going to get to that later when we talked about his best location is just where there's a foundation in place. Because again, with the Hurricanes, obviously that program is revolved around the offensive line. That is their identity. That's where everything starts, including high school recruiting. So when you had guys, Markel Bell, Enes Cooper, of course, All-American Fresno Noah, James Brockermeyer, you split snaps between Matthew McCoy and Samson Okunlola. Like that was an elite offensive line. And so he had time to operate. But if he's not getting that in the NFL, that protection, then I agree with you, things are going to turn to the worst. Because with Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator with UM, he allowed Carson some freedom, but of course, again, in those first 5 games, yeah, I think he was more so strict in terms of following the play, run the ball, don't do too much, a few flashy passes here and there, but nothing too crazy that could have resulted in uh worse situations. So I agree with you on that part that he is very systematic. Everything has to be damn near perfect for him to operate and to maximize his potential. I agree with you on that part.
Listen, I definitely think he could be a great talent in this league. I'm not trying to discredit the fact that he could be a great talent. Like we've seen it. Like he used to be a first round. He was projected a first round talent at one point in his career. For like two consecutive seasons, and
Mhm.
then last year he just kind of fell apart and his stock dropped because of everything that happened at UGA, the arm injury. People didn't know if he was going to come back the same, and then finally he comes back to Miami out of all places with receivers he's never met before, with guys he's never met before, with in a room in which he's having a hard time building his leadership just because he's injured and can't be on the field to prove himself. So he's making the right calls, the right decisions, and being like, hey, you go, like he's saying the right things to be that leader on and off the field, which I
Mhm.
feel like is a very important quality and factor to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah,
But where, mhm.
that whole wide receiver core was brand new to him because of course you get Keelan Marion, CJ Daniels in the portal, and then of course Malachi Tony was a high school recruit who reclassified, and then everything else was mostly high school recruits, sophomores. But again, like you mentioned, it was completely like that wide receiver core was damn near completely new in terms of just familiarity, chemistry, almost every area like that.
Yeah. My question to you is what round do you see his talent being? Because for me, he sits at around the round three. I think round three, round four would be around five. Like those 3 rounds are like where he would sit. For me, at least, that's where I feel comfortable placing him.
I go with round 3. I think there's going to be organization hungry for a quarterback and see him and think, okay, this is a pretty good pick for him, good value for him, not too expensive. So this could be a good gamble, decent gamble to work with. I would go with like I know we talk about systems, but maybe the Cleveland Browns, they're switching things up a lot. So maybe start from there. I know we talk about Shador Sanders, but I don't think Shador is established just yet. We'll see how that goes. I would actually go with Pittsburgh on more so for Carson than I would with Ty Simpson, just because even though again, like I said, we haven't seen a talented quarterback come out of there in a while, but I think for an organization that's restarting, and maybe just not rushing to compete, I think that's a good place to start, especially with this new era without Mike Tomlin.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, for me, actually, you're gonna laugh at me when I say this because we've had these conversations before on the main show. I would like to see him end up on the Dolphins. I know the Dolphins are kind of going for a weird little thing right now where they're kind of pushing for the mobile quarterback route, but at the end of the day, our backup quarterback's Quinn Ewers, and Quinn Ewers isn't exactly the creme of the crop of quarterbacks. Who knows? Maybe he becomes something. He's only 21 years old, but I think Beck's mentality and IQ would fit very well in the quarterback room in Miami. I think he could elevate the team. I don't know if he'd be able to start his first year because of the amount of weapons that we do not have, and I don't think he would elevate because of the weapons that we do not have. But I do think it would be a great system for him to learn in and really get an NFL experience in, just so he can get that confidence and that mentality ready for if he wants to go to the next team or if the Dolphins shape up to be the team that he plays for. Another team for him that I could see ending up on would be Minnesota. I think Minnesota could be an interesting destination for him.
Ooh,
They've always been very pass heavy first quarterback since rather than run quarterback. So I think that could be a very interesting dynamic, especially since JJ McCarthy isn't exactly in the question at the moment, isn't exactly in the picture at the moment.
so I gotta ask, JJ McCarthy, Kyler Murray, and let's say for this situation, Carson Beck. Like, how do you see that organization shaping up
Well,
if you have all three of those guys in the same quarterback room?
Well, it's definitely going to be Kyler at one. I mean, I don't see why anyone would have Kyler sitting off the bench. I'm not gonna lie, I completely forgot about Kyler for a moment. But Kyler would be the number one option. After that, with how little JJ McCarthy has shown in the past in his time with the Minnesota Vikings, I would say you could kind of move Carson Beck up there. If he's performing well in training camp, he's making the right throws, right reads, his IQ's high. Throw Carson Beck in the back of there. Why not? Yeah, you wasted your first round pick on JJ McCarthy, but at least you're trying to make up for it now with something else. And then eventually, maybe one day, if someone really wants to take a shot on JJ McCarthy and trade him, why not? It's the same thing with Anthony Richardson right now. Anthony Richardson is in a really tough spot because he's always been injured. He can't stay healthy. He's not accurate. Carson Beck doesn't have that problem. Carson Beck can stay healthy. He can stay reliable. Well, I don't know about healthy because we've seen him get injured, but he can't. He's been healthy this entire season. So we
He's
have seen.
for the most part he was healthy. It was just one freak accident.
Yeah, so we've seen what it's like when he's healthy, and honestly, that's another great team for him. The Colts. I know they just re-signed Daniel Jones, but maybe the Colts can be another runner-up team that could go get another pocket passer as their guy.
I would just say for Minnesota, I mean, the thing is we're seeing quarterbacks get thrown away left and right without proper foundations, without proper chances to really win. So I don't know. I feel like we haven't seen. In my opinion, I understand JJ was your full time starter this year, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I still believe in him because I really just can't. I don't know what's up. I really don't know what's up with him and the whole organization, and they still need to revamp the offensive line. But I don't know if I give up on him just yet.
Well, it depends on what type of owner you are, and clearly you're the owner that believes in your guys and wants them to grow, which is a good thing. But at the end of the day, man, it's a business. Like look at Anthony Richardson, and I always bring up this example because it makes me laugh every time. Anthony Richardson had such a small sample size when he got drafted into the NFL, but the things that NFL scouts liked about him was that one, he can run the ball. Two, he's very big, and three, this guy has a freakish arm. Like he can chuck it like 90 yards down the field if you want to. It's a rare talent to find, but couldn't stay healthy and couldn't be accurate. Why? Because the tape on him wasn't enough. He was never accurate in Florida, and he was never accurate in the NFL. So what? Why do people think that's going to translate? It's kind of the same thing with JJ McCarthy in this instance. Like JJ McCarthy, I was never high on him coming out of college. He was on a stacked Michigan team that carried him, in my opinion, and they did everything they could for that guy and set him up in the right moments. And now that JJ McCarthy's in a pretty decent situation with good running back room, good offensive line, and a good receiving room, and he still can't succeed and make big throws, it really makes you wonder, is this guy just a system quarterback or is he actually just a bust?
Well, that's going to be very interesting what Minnesota does, especially if they go for Carson Beck.
It would be
Now,
interesting.
yeah, it would be very interesting. Now, Nick, this next quarterback had arguably the biggest, you could say, surgeons for the whole year, a Heisman Trophy candidate, and led a program who's not known for winning to a pretty good year. Talking about Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt. Now, there's a lot of concerns about just maybe his attitude, also his height, and just, of course, just like Carson Beck, spent a lot of years in college. So that whole age thing, it does play a factor, even though sometimes it's kind of ridiculous because it makes them more ready. Where do you see Diego going? Because there's a lot of mocks that have him going maybe fifth, sixth, seventh, or even just maybe undrafted. And part of that tank was because, of course, of his attitude following the Heisman Trophy Award announcement.
Well, I think just based off his size alone, being 5'10", 207 pounds, it's not exactly the most impressive thing to look at. But his size makes him polarizing. Like, what else can I say? Like, but the edge and the playmaking will, like, he'll get his chances just because of like all the things that he's done for Vanderbilt. Like, I was looking at this guy's stats recently, and I saw that he had 3 seasons that I didn't know about because again, it's Vanderbilt, and even then before that, it was New Mexico State that he threw 26 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, 20 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, 29 to 8. Like it's been touchdowns. Like this guy knows how to get it in the end zone while throwing the ball, regardless of his size, and we've seen it time and time again. And then not only that, he's had the best completion percentage of his entire career last year, which I love to see, which he threw for 70% while doing an 11% increase from year before, which is a crazy jump to see, especially from being on the same team. Like that is a jump you never get to see these guys make, and I love it. I love it. I also love the fact that he can run the ball. I think he's a great runner. I don't think he's NFL fast. I think he's college fast. I don't think he's
Mhm.
going to be able to keep that same speed, especially with his size in the NFL. But the guy knows how to get in the end zone too and on the ground. Not only did he have 29 touchdowns this season passing, but he had 10 touchdowns rushing the ball with 862 yards to total it. This guy had 10,000 career passing yards to 3,000 career rushing yards in 4 years. Like this guy knows how to get it done. This guy is football. He reminds me of Johnny Manziel, like in college. I don't want to say exactly like Johnny Manziel, but he does know how to make plays and he does know how to win big games. Now, his biggest strengths to me is that he's a competitor. He has dual threat value. He has a great improvisation skills. He has a fearless play style, and his production is off the charts. He's a wild when it comes to his production, but unfortunately, he has a really tiny frame. He's sub NFL length. Not a lot of teams are going to like that about him. His arm length, his size, just alone, everything about him, his size is just it's not impressive to any NFL team or NFL scout that makes you just want to jump out and waste a first, second, third, fourth, fifth. In my opinion, this guy's a sixth, seventh round pick. It would be amazing getting him for in that area just because of who he is and like his size and everything he's doing. Um, but he's not exactly like the next like generational quarterback from what I've seen. Like he just reminds me of every stereotypical great college quarterback where he can make big plays in big moments and make college plays, but it won't translate to the NFL. He really reminds me of Taylor Heineke. He's just a good a good spark plug in the backup position. Like if someone goes down, plug him in, make some big plays. I don't know, maybe run headfirst into someone like Cam Scadaboo, get some hype from the team, get everyone excited. But at the end of the day, like this guy, his floor to me is that he's gonna be a practice squad guy. Like it's I don't see a lot for this guy moving forward in the future, like in the NFL. Like I think he'll maybe last like 3-4 seasons as a backup, and at that point, I think that'd be successful for him. Um, but I really don't see anything out of him. Like his best game was back in 2025, and it was a great game. Like I forgot the game. I thought I had it in my notes, but I don't. But I do remember that game that he had. I think he had like 4 touchdowns or something like that. It was wild. But that was his Heisman moment. And like it's very rare that you get a quarterback out of Vanderbilt, out of all places, an SEC school, having Heisman moments. So it makes you question like, damn, is it the team that's elevating it, or is it really Diego? And then the more you keep watching this guy, and it's like, wow, he really knows how to elevate a team. Like he really knows how to lead a team. Yeah,
Mhm.
his leadership style and like what he does off the field may be questionable, but if you can mold him and shape him into a professional football player and make him into the guy that you need to be a leader, maybe you don't even need him as a starter. Maybe like I just said, you can use him as a centennial backup so that he can be that leader, that leader on and off the field, so that you can rely on someone that when you just mess up on a play or just something goes wrong, you know who to plug in, you know who to play. It's Diego Pavia. I think Diego Pavia is a seventh round pick, and that's where I stand on him.
Yeah, Diego is probably the most interesting case in terms of quarterbacks because, like you mentioned, it's not often. I wouldn't imagine it's that often that we see a finalist for the Heisman Trophy and just dip probably this far in the draft to even going undrafted. I so unless you got
Well,
some.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be he wouldn't be the only guy, especially in this draft class. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Haynes King, man, Haynes King is one of those guys that he was making a really good push for the Heisman Trophy watch, and he was on there for a while. But at the end of the day, wasn't enough. And you know, I'm sorry I'm jumping to Haynes King right now, but Haynes King
It's all right.
was an interesting player in college. You know, this guy was able to run the ball. I think for the past 3 seasons, he had double-digit touchdowns running the ball and double-digit touchdowns passing the ball. His interception to touchdown ratio passing the ball was a little bit questionable, but in his last 2 years, he was able to spike up his stats to over 70%. But teams are still very low on him for the fact that he's on a traditional run-first team, which is Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech knows how to run the ball. That's what their whole game is. That's what they're going to design them around. That's why his stats aren't through the roof when it comes to passing and all these other things. His production is great, but Diego provides more. But Haynes King was one of those guys that was considered to be like, man, this guy can actually do something in the draft. Maybe he could. Maybe he could. He's a premier runner, but no, he's a great college quarterback, and that's what he is. It reminds me of Diego Pavia. Just a great college quarterback. It is what it is. He can make big plays running the ball. He has great production, but it won't translate to the NFL unless he just miraculously starts throwing an amazing completion percentage in the NFL, which I doubt right off the bat.
Diego threw for over 300 yards 5 times with Vanderbilt. I think that's going to be hard to ignore for any NFL scout because, of course, you got to look at that production. And like you mentioned, he's won everywhere he's been. So I understand, like, again, he's not the most talented. The frame is definitely going to be a massive concern. But I think when we look at that 5, 6, 7 round projection, I think there's going to be someone who will take a gamble on it.
No, 1,000% someone's going to take a gamble on it. You know, a team that's going to be very run heavy, a team that's going to need someone to just kind of be their spark plug, like I mentioned before. If Baltimore is looking for a backup quarterback, I think that could be an interesting spot for him to land in. They already have a very good run system. You got a premier runner. You know, Lamar Jackson goes down. Okay, we got this guy. We could use him like Kyler Murray. He has enough speed, not a lot, but he has enough speed to get around the edge if you need him to get a first down and make a big play. We don't have to rely on him to throw the ball. If we do need him to throw the ball, we'll just make him short, intermediate game. But his biggest thing to me is his loft. Like, and again, I'm going to mention this about a lot of these guys, but he has a little bit too much loft on these balls. Like, he looks like his bullets look like they don't look fast enough to me. Like, again, I could just be spoiled because I saw Cam Ward last season, and that was, to me, was incredible. The amount of zip that guy had on the ball was incredible. But this guy doesn't have that much zip. Like, he doesn't have that strength that these NFL quarterbacks do, or even like these quarterbacks going to the NFL did. Like Baker Mayfield, Heisman Trophy winner, who had oh my Lord, a phenomenal arm in college for Oklahoma. Even Patrick Mahomes for Texas Tech, phenomenal arm. Josh Allen, Wyoming, phenomenal arm. Like, all these guys have zip on the ball. Diego Pavia just doesn't have that zip on the ball. That's one of his biggest flaws that I also noticed. Yes, he does well under pressure, but he won't be enough, especially in the NFL when you're going up against guys that are 6'5", 6'6" on the defensive line, maybe even taller. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But if he can't even look over the offensive line, then I don't know why teams are looking at him in the first place.
I can see that, but I would actually name Minnesota better for him than the previous quarterbacks that we talk about, like Carson Beck, just because they have multiple rounders late in the draft. So I think they can afford to burn one on Diego. So I see that as a more potential landing spot for him in terms of, again, just who's at the end of that draft. So I would say Minnesota for him just because of that reason specifically. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens to him because, again, he transformed a program that's known for losing in the SEC of all places. So I think I think Diego's gonna be one of those, like, where front office members are gonna have to really debate back and forth. What are the pros? What are the cons? Is it worth it? I think that's gonna be probably the most heaviest conversation in terms of the rest of the quarterback class and very late in the draft.
No, I could agree with that. I could definitely see that because, again, a lot of his off the field antics are what NFL officials have been questioning. You know,
Yeah.
like I actually, funny enough, now we're talking about it. I actually met him not too long ago at UFC 327, and super nice guy, super well mannered, but he did bleach his hair though. I don't know if that says anything, but normally the party people like to bleach their hair. And as long as he's not doing that clap off the field, I mean, I think we're chilling. I think we're good. But
I think also clap on the field because John Gruden,
oh,
we know he hates clapping in terms of snap counts, cadences. So,
and I'll tell you what, he showed a lot in that Gruden's room. He surely showed a lot about his IQ and his
yeah, he really
smarts in that
did.
Gruden room. So
it changed my perspective on Diego.
yeah, I think that video did change a lot of perspective on Diego. But again, man, if it doesn't translate on the field, it's not going to do anything. Because again, the spike that spike that he had to me is concerning. The fact that he only had one great season throwing a completion percentage of 70%. Like that to me is going to be his biggest factor on if he can get into this league or not. Because you see guys like Brock Purdy who were taken super late in the draft and at the end of the draft. What am I saying? And you see him play, and it's like, damn, this guy's accurate. And you can look at that back at Iowa State. Yeah, he wasn't throwing a lot of touchdown passes, but he was accurate. That was his best feature. He was a system quarterback that was accurate and could make audibles when you needed him to. I haven't seen much of Diego Pavia needing to make audibles throughout his time in Vanderbilt. But at the end of the day, he is taking this team to a different place and taking them on another level in the SEC and of all places, like you said. So
Mm-hmm.
I got to give him his roses, but he's still going to be a seventh round talent for me.
Yeah. No, that I don't disagree with you on. He's going to be a late projected talent for sure. But I think he can be, not to say Mr. Irrelevant, but maybe one of those ones that maybe just really surges in the right situation and right opportunity. But we'll see how it goes. And for our final quarterback that we're going to talk about for this class, LSU had a very underwhelming season.
Again,
Obviously the firing of Brian Kelly played a huge factor in it. He was never really a right fit, never the right attitude. And then of course Lane Kiffin is not running the show. He definitely changed that program from the roster with the coaching staff. So we'll see how it goes. But for Garrett Newsmeyer, probably one that's not really regarded much in these mock drafts and just not really talked about at all, even behind Diego Pavia in the list. Nick, what do you think maybe can stand out about him that most scouts or maybe most organizations aren't really paying attention to a lot?
well, I think that it's the fact that he's an aggressive thrower. He's very good. He has very great touch down the field when it comes to throwing the ball. We've seen that in his tape from LSU back in his junior season. He's confident. He has confident anticipation when throwing the ball, and he has enough arm to attack small windows, which is a beautiful to see from quarterbacks. The fact that he can fit a ball into the tightest window possible and make it look like nothing. I mean, it's something that I would say is almost generational. And it's not like this guy has exactly had a really bad completion percentage for his career too, throwing at 64%. It's a little bit below my average, but you can't be mad when your guy's throwing 64% and then he has 4,000 yards with 29 touchdowns to 12 interceptions on it. Like that's not a bad interception ratio at all. It's very similar to Carson Beck. Last year injuries did hit him, so he wasn't able to play. But even when he did play, he was still able to put up almost 2,000 yards, 12 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. So the TD ratio definitely fell off there for him in his last year. But I really like Garrett Nussmeier. I think he could be a very great fit. A lot of these quarterbacks have a very similar theme in which they are system quarterbacks, but I think him out of the bunch, he can be the one to be able to create his own moments in which he can make audibles. He can be an on-field creator and an off-field creator if he can be. His only biggest problem is that he can drift into hero ball, where he can make the whole game by about himself, and that he's going to get tunnel vision on his first read, and then that's it. He's going to stick with that read no matter what. He is very streaky as well, and his decision making has been under some heat recently because that's been his biggest thing. Like when he gets into that hero ball mode, and like when he's confident and he's feeling right, he's feeling good. A lot of NFL scouts have questioned like, can he even like read other options? Like, is it just like down this one tunnel of just my number one receiver and that's it? Like what is this? Um, he had his best game back in 2024 in the 2024 bowl against Wisconsin. He threw for 395 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Phenomenal that game. His careers have been totaled now to 7,699 yards to 52 touchdowns to 24 interceptions. So he's almost hitting that mark of every other touchdowns and interception, which is very scary to see. But as an overall player, man, he's a pass-first gunslinger type. He can look like a top 50 pick when the timing and aggression are in sync. So this guy definitely has some talent. To me, he should be over Ty Simpson. That's just me personally, though. I think he's a better talent than Ty Simpson, especially while throwing the ball. Maybe Ty Simpson has the edge when running the ball, but I really like Garrett Nussmeier a lot in this draft. I think he can be one of those guys that really exceeds and really just steps up to the occasion when you need him to. I think a really good fit for him as well would be New Orleans, where his father's the offensive coordinator there. So it wouldn't even exactly be like he's getting into a new system. He'd be built into a system already since his father is part of that team already. Yes, you have Tyler Show, but there are still a lot of questions about Tyler Show if he can be that guy next season, if he could step up. We saw a lot of up moments from him. We saw a lot of down moments from him. So next year is going to be a really big chance for him to start and show people what he's about. But if he does go down, man, it's not like you got an LSU rookie who's shown that he can be a first round talent when you need him to be. So I'm very excited to see what Garrett Nussmeier does. I was low on him at the beginning of the season. The more I kept watching, I was like, I feel like I recognize this guy from somewhere. And I started looking at old tape, and I was like, I know this guy. This guy's pretty freaking good. I like this guy. And he has that it factor that you need in quarterbacks. He may be a little slow, just like all these other quarterbacks in this class. He ran a 4.8 240, but he has an appropriate size of 6'2", 200 pounds. It's an average size for the most part. But again, what makes him special and stand out compared to all these other quarterbacks is how he can get the ball downfield and how tight he can fit these balls into these windows.
Yeah, nepotism maybe.
Maybe a little bit of nepotism. Maybe a little bit of nepotism. But I think it would be a great fit for him at the end of the day because he would be basically born into the NFL system. I don't want to say born into it, but he would basically be fit already into the NFL system. He has his family a part of it. He could be a day one leader from the start. So I don't see why it would be a bad fit for him personally. And he stays in NOLA out of all places. So I think that's a really great fit for him.
The Saints of all places, man. That's a tough
And they
place to start. That's a
no,
tough
it
place to
is.
start.
It is, especially since the Saints have been very quarterback hungry ever since the retirement of Drew Brees, my favorite quarterback, my favorite
Mhm.
modern quarterback. But they've gone from Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis Winston, Tyler Show. Even before that, I forget these names because these guys are almost freaking they're irrelevant. They haven't had a great quarterback in so long, and I don't want to say this guy's going to be great, but he definitely has the ability to. For me, his ceiling could be Derek Carr, and Derek Carr was not bad. I thought Derek Carr was pretty good in his career on the Raiders. And for me, and at that point, after that, I think he could be a solid number two quarterback like Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord's very accurate, very fun to watch. Definitely suggest checking him out at some point. But I see a bright future for this kid. I think he's gonna be pretty good.
Nick, I obviously trust you with everything in terms of scouting for every sport, but to say Garrett ahead of Ty, that's a hot one. That's a hot take right there.
I
Because now,
mean, listen,
because
man.
people
Mhm.
honestly think that Ty is probably the second best behind Mendoza.
For me, it's the sample size that I don't like. I don't have a big enough sample size to go off of when it's just one season. With
Mhm.
Garrett Nussmeier, I'm getting consecutive seasons in which I know what I'm getting. And yes, the interception to touchdown ratio is concerning, but he gets yards. He gets yards, and he can get you in good positions to make big plays. And I think he's a better adjuster than Ty Simpson is personally.
That's gotta
I
be a
just
hot take, honestly, because
I just think LSU's really fallen off the rails these past few years. And again, yeah, he got
they
injured.
have.
He got injured too, so that doesn't really necessarily help his stock as well. But I think he's a better quarterback than Ty Simpson.
That is very interesting because again, even media personnel, I don't think many of them are even touching the name Garrett Nussmeier in this draft, at least, or at least not in the first 4 rounds
Well,
that I
they
can
should.
remember.
I feel like they should. I feel like they'd be very surprised with the tape. I feel like they'd be very surprised with a guy like him. And a lot of these guys are coming out of this draft that are being like 6'2", 200 pounds, like just a normal average weight and a height for a quarterback. But sometimes they have that it factor, man. He has it. He definitely has that ability to be that it guy. I don't know if he's gonna ever hit it in his point. It really just depends on what team he ends up on and if it's a great fit for them. I think he's better than Drew Aller. I think he's better than Taylor Green, Cole Payton, Cade Klubnik. I can go on a whole list of them. This guy has a lot of talent, and I really believe in him. I really like Garrett Nussmeier.
That's probably like the dark horse for this draft because again, and even that, but even then again, the bar is low on this quarterback class.
Yeah, I'm not really going off of a lot here, Like it's not exactly like you said, it's not exactly the greatest or the most what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's not the most beautifully pictured draft class we've ever seen for quarterbacks. Like there's only so much to work off of, and at this point, when you're a team drafting these guys, it's like okay, we get these guys as a backup, have them develop. If they turn into anything great, at the end of the day, we keep them as a backup, and we know what we have already. That's it, you know. So you could see Garrett Nussmeier falling to the third, fourth, fifth round around there with Carson Beck for me at least. And I would be very pleased for the team that gets him because they're gonna get a little guy back there. They're gonna get someone that knows how to step up and right in big moments. And again, it's not exactly like LSU's a bad place to be in for development. LSU's a pro potential place, and we've seen time and time again players and just that team succeed, and not even at this level, in the next level too. So yeah, that's where I stand on that. I'm sorry if it's a little bit of a hot take for everybody. I'm sorry to the Ty Simpson fans, but I can't with Ty Simpson, man. I'm sorry. I'm not sold on the accuracy.
Man, the Nick's scouting room is off to a hot start, and we're gonna go with this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong side of the chair. Hold on, let me turn this way. Yeah, see, like it's I'm all cozied up. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to keep going.
Oh man. Well, that's most of the quarterbacks that we're gonna cover for this episode. And again, this quarterback class is not at all sexy in any way, but a few candidates here and there that could make a jump if given the right opportunity and right system. I mean, we'll see how it goes. We still have a few days away from the NFL draft. And man, it's going to be very interesting to see where a lot of these players go, especially these quarterbacks. And it could determine a lot of their futures. But for tonight, for today, this is all we have for Nick's Scouting Room. Anthony Aguirre here with Nick Dupont. And we will see you next time.